Welcome back, everybody, to 31 1980s horror movies for Halloween, where I'm counting down my favorite horror movies from the 1980s. So we're at the number 6 spot, and I guess you could technically say this is my favorite zombie movie. I don't know, it does kind of fit in the zombie genre, but it also fits in the mad scientist genre, and it fits in the body horror genre, so it's sort of a mashup here. But if people do consider this a zombie movie, then you can consider this my all-time favorite zombie movie, and that is Stuart Gordon's Re-Animator.
You killed him!
No, I did not.
I gave him life.
Like I said, Stuart Gordon is one of the most underrated horror directors, and Re-Animator is definitely my favorite movie by him. It's a horror comedy, and it's one of the greatest horror comedies. I absolutely love it. We have Jeffrey Combs once again as Herbert West, one of the greatest characters in all of horror, and hands down my favorite mad scientist. He has created an elixir that can bring people back from the dead. He ends up going to this university, Miskatonic University, because this is based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, and he becomes the roommate of this medical student named Dan, who's dating the dean's daughter, Megan, played by Barbara Crampton, my favorite scream queen.
I'm going to take care of him, Doctor, and I'm going to find out what happened to him.
Meanwhile, you have this professor named Dr. Hill who has this obsession with the dean's daughter. There's a rivalry between him and Herbert West. Long story short, Herbert West gets Dan involved with his Re-Animator, and shenanigans ensue. Bloody zombie shenanigans. Hands down, Herbert West steals the whole show. The thing about Herbert West is, at least in the first 2 Re-Animator movies, you can't really call him a villain. He's not a good guy, but he's definitely in this weird gray area. I don't feel right putting him on a list of horror movie villains, but at the same time I don't feel right putting him on a list of horror movie protagonists. He has good intentions. He wants to create an elixir that brings people back from the dead, essentially wants to end death. So he has good intentions, he just goes about it in questionable ways. He's not really doing this for the good of humanity, he's doing it for science.
Now, he interrupted an important experiment in progress. Granted, it was an accident, but this is the freshest body that we could come across, save of killing one ourselves, and every moment that we spent talking about it cost us results. Now, will you give me a hand?
That's the thing with Herbert West in terms of a horror movie character, whether you view him as a villain or a protagonist. You look at all these other horror movie characters, they have different motivations, or they'll have no motivations for why they do things. Herbert West is driven by sheer ambition. He believes in his experiments so much that he's willing to do anything to make sure that nothing stops him from completing his experiments. Then you have Dan, who is the everyman. He's a good character too. I mean, you understand where he's coming from. Right at the beginning of the film, he's trying to bring this woman back from the dead with, like beating on her chest, but she's dead and he can't do anything about it. So you can see why he would get tangled up with West. He doesn't want people to die. And then you have Barbara Crampton, who, her character is essentially just the damsel in distress, but she's able to do everything with this role. She's able to take this rather bland role and make it into something, make it deeper than it really is.
I tried to hate you. I wanted so much to hate you.
And then you have Dr. Hill, who is essentially the main villain of this movie. Long story short, he ends up getting his head cut off, and Herbert West brings the head and the body back to life, and he becomes our main villain of this movie, creating even more zombies with the Re-Animator juice, while also giving into his obsession with the Dean's daughter. So, yes, the most infamous scene in this movie is where a severed head gives head. Not really gives head, though. There's a misconception with it. They call it the severed head gives head scene, but Dr. Hill is about to give head to the Megan character, but he's stopped at the last minute, which is why I'm okay with this scene, because it doesn't go too far. It goes just far. It does take a few steps over the line, but not too many steps over the line. It knows when to stop.
Oh my God! Yes, my love!
I must say, Dr. Hill, I'm very disappointed in you.
And you have to give it to Barbara Crampton in this scene, because she's the reason this scene works so well. Because it's a ridiculous concept, this severed head mouthing this naked woman, but Barbara Crampton, her acting is so well done. She commands that scene. She acts like this is really happening to her and coming across as so genuinely afraid that it makes it ridiculous, but suspenseful at the same time. Re-Animator has this cartooniness to it, but not too much of it. It has just the right amount of this cartoony nature, because if it got too cartoony, the movie would still be fun, but I don't think it would be as good as it is.
Dan, look out.
You have these zombie set pieces that are, again, suspenseful, but so much fun at the same time. They're bloody, but in a fun way. So you can't help but enjoy yourself while watching this movie. And it is Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West that holds this whole movie together. If they didn't nail Herbert West, this movie would not be as fun as it is.
You couldn't call or write a note.
I was busy pushing bodies around, as you well know, and what would a note say, Dan? Cat dead, details later?
Everything in here is the right amount of gore, the right amount of humor, the right amount of suspense, the right amount of uncomfortable scenarios, and again, each sequence knows when to end. It knows when to stop that sequence and move on. Re-Animator is one of the most well-paced horror movies of the 1980s. And it's only like 84 minutes long, too, so it's not a long sit. There's really no reason to not check it out, because you're not going to be there for long. I love this movie because of its fun, its humor, its gore, and its pacing. Seriously, I really gotta praise the pacing here. It's just so well done. Re-Animator is another one of those movies that's perfect to watch with friends for Halloween, just because it's so goddamn enjoyable. Get some friends together, get a pizza, get some beer, and a nice bowl of buttery popcorn. Just sit back and have a good time.
Dangerous.